What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are reacting to these flybys were both badass and dangerous. So some sick flyovers, I'm assuming, in the stadiums. We're going to check them out. So thank you for you guys recommending this video. Before we get into the video,
please smash that subscribe button because we're so literally around the corner to 70k.
Yeah, and you're going to hear this every video till we hit it.
Yep.
And then it'll be 80k.
Then 90, then 100.
Yeah, let's make it happen, guys. Oh.
Wow.
I love the adrenaline from the fans when that happened.
Military flybys are an American sporting institution and are usually timed so the roar of the engines overhead the crowd happens right as the final strains of the national anthem are fading away. Military instructions define a flyby as, quote, one straight and level pass and not to involve aerobatics or aircraft demonstrations, end quote. Aerobatics is defined as, quote, an intentional maneuver involving abrupt change in an aircraft's attitude.
I don't know if it was a flyover, but I feel like there was one we saw on a previous video where the jet, I think it was a Raptor or something, done an aerodynamic move. And it went into the air like mad after the flyover. Was it a flyover?
Yeah.
It was, isn't it? I trust her memory. She got a good memory.
I remember it was a stadium and it went straight and then it went up.
And he started doing a madness.
But I think because there was one of them.
It was just one on its own.
Yeah, that's probably why.
And so it's quite interesting. Maybe that was like a one-off, that way they went against the rules to kind of just make it even more hype.
Cheeky.
An abnormal attitude or abnormal acceleration, not necessary for normal flight, end quote. An abnormal attitude is a pitch attitude of the aircraft greater than 60 degrees above or below the horizon and or the angle of bank greater than 75 degrees in reference to the horizon. The altitude limit for flybys was 500 feet above ground level, but after 9/11 that was raised to 1,000 feet. The airspeed limit is defined as quote-unquote not supersonic, but most commands further limit their crews to no faster than 350 to 400 knots. Done right, flybys are thrilling and inspiring. Done wrong, they can be dangerous, hazarding people and property, and career-ending for the aviators involved. September 30th, 2000. A college football game with the Naval Academy midshipmen hosting the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland. A little background here. I was stationed at the Naval Academy at the time and friends with the Naval Academy's operations officer, who was also a Tomcat Rio. He was in charge of coordinating the flybys with the squadrons involved. He told me his general guidance to the aviators was to be safe, but also to do their best to motivate the home team and the fans. The TCU game that year was the second home game of the season. The flyby for the first game against Temple was done by two VF-143 Pukin Dogs Tomcats that passed over the stadium low and fast and loud, right on cue. The fans loved it. The pilot for the second game flyby was a Marine Corps major who'd flown Harriers on active duty and was now a reservist attached to the FA-18C squadron based at Andrews Air Force Base just outside of Washington, D.C. I knew him and had actually flown in a Tomcat dogfighting against him in a Harrier off the coast of North Carolina one time. He was a good pilot. Like all of the crews who performed flybys at Navy games, the Major was a Naval Academy graduate. He happened to be in the stands for the first home game, and during his coordination with the operations officer, he mentioned he wanted to make his pass even more thrilling than the Tomcats at the home opener. The OPSO's response was, go for it. I attended this game along with my wife and two sons. We lived on the Naval Academy campus at the time, which is walking distance from the stadium, and we always had season tickets during the 4 years I was on the faculty there. Our seats were in the stands behind the west end zone, which gave us a great vantage point for this flyby. Like all Naval Academy flybys, the Hornet held over the mouth of the Severn River while waiting for the call over the radio from his ground controller located on the sidelines. The pilot had set up a GPS waypoint at the 50-yard line, and he figured the push time and speed based on the normal length of the national anthem and the distance he had to travel to get there right at the final note.
That was really low. Was it just me?
That was quite low.
That was lower than usual. Yeah, I think this was the one.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Because I said he went up and he started doing a mad, like, aerodynamic move.
But again, there's one of them.
Yeah.
Here we see the Hornet still descending as it passes over Taylor Avenue that runs perpendicular to the field to the east. He's still descending as he enters the bowl of the stadium and passes below press box level. At that point, I felt like the jet was going to fly right into my lap.
Yeah, I was saying that's so low compared to the others we've seen.
As he reaches midfield, the pilot has full afterburner staged, and he makes an aggressive nose-high pull and rolls left, pushing the limits of what defines aerobatic flight. You see the evergreen trees at the bottom of the frame here. We were seated.
He was basically drifting the jet.
Yeah.
He was on a mad one.
He was like, I own this jet. The jet does not own me.
And the guy said he's a very good pilot, so
Yeah.
he's obviously knows his shit. But all it takes is one wrong maneuver, or you like overstated something to cause an accident.
In the stands in front of
Or
those, and as I watched
miscalculation.
the Hornet roar overhead at full power, I saw the trees bend towards us from the force of the jet's exhaust.
trees
We could
moved.
feel the heat of the afterburners and smell the JP5 fuel. After the exhilaration wore off, we realized just how dangerous the flyby had been, and I wondered what was going to happen to the pilot. You see, the thing about Naval Academy home football games is it's a safe bet that either the Chief of Naval Operations or the Commandant of the Marine Corps or even the Secretary of the Navy is in the stands at any given game. I figured the Major
so
would
they're
lose his
watching
wings
it.
for sure, but later I heard that he had only been grounded for a couple of weeks, and later he chose to retire from the reserves. And while the
No
hope
way.
was that a badass flyby would motivate the Navy team to victory, they wound up losing to TCU 24-0.
Oh.
November
Damn, they
7,
got battered as
2009. Georgia Tech was the home team in a football game against Wake Forest at Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. The flyby was conducted by a section of Super Hornets from Strike Fighter Squadron 136 based at Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
They look sick, just hovering, ready. At a steady pace.
The two Super Hornets passed over the field southbound with gear and flaps down, but the tail hooks up for some reason, at 200 feet, well below the minimum allowable altitude
They
of 1,000
literally
feet.
skimmed that building.
The flyby
from the looks of
generated
it.
massive social media coverage, most of it very positive. A Georgia Tech fan tweeted, quote, "However much of my tax dollars went to that, I'd gladly give it again for the same purpose.
Why
It
not?
was, all caps, incredible."
That's
end quote.
hilarious.
In spite of the public's enthusiastic response, the VFA 136 commanding officer convened a Field Naval Aviator Evaluation Board, also known as a FNAB, on both the lead and wing pilots.
Oh, so
During the
about trouble.
proceedings, the lead pilot claimed that his low altitude was a function of him referencing his barometric altitude instead of his radar altitude. The board and the chain of command above the
See, if that was real, so if obviously it might be an excuse him trying to save his skin, yeah, saying like I made a mistake on that end. But if he genuinely mistaked those two, so he mistaked the other number on the altitude instead, yeah. If that was genuine, he could have literally crashed into the stadium because he's trusting these numbers. So all it took was one miscalculation, and if he's genuinely done that without like that was a genuine mistake, a lot of people could have died that day if you deep it. Because imagine you like fully just smashed into the stands. Then what?
Scary.
Yeah, that's scary, man.
squadron accepted the explanation and chalked it up to what the report described as, quote unquote, an honest mistake. However, the ultimate review authority, the two-star admiral who was in command of Naval Air Force Atlantic, rejected the findings of the board and subsequent reviewers, saying that, quote, the arguments written by prior endorsers that the lead pilot's actions were an honest mistake are not persuasive. He is a senior, very experienced department head who
It could have been
places
an excuse.
aircraft and wingmen in a very dangerous position, end quote. The Airland commander also said the wingman's complacent response to the altitude transgression and lack of situational awareness were, quote unquote, unforgivable. Both pilots were allowed to keep their wings.
I'm not going to lie. I think that I don't want to be that guy, but I think some sort of penalization was the right thing to do, because if it is an honest mistake, you still need to make an example of it to make people aware that you can't make an honest mistake like that again, because there's so much at risk. Like they looked like they was close to hitting that building. I don't know if it was a camera angle, but it was close.
The thing is, like the presenter just said, the board, they said the pilot or the lead guy, he's senior and he's got loads of experience.
And his other second jet was following his lead as well. So like,
it's kind of, it's like us working somewhere, us going to the CEO, and the CEO is directing us the wrong way. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
But it could have been an honest mistake,
but it should still be penalized.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But were removed from a flying status. November 20th, 2010. Iowa football at home versus Ohio State at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City, Iowa. An Air Force lieutenant colonel led a four-ship formation of T-38s out of
That's
Vance Air
low,
Force Base
man.
over Kinnick Stadium.
That
The
looks sick,
flyby
though.
traveled in a southbound direction, clearing the scoreboard by only 58 feet, which is well below 1,000 feet, at an airspeed well above the maximum the
They were only 58 feet above the scoreboard.
I'm not gonna lie, I think from the stadium fans' perspective, that must look amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
They're loving it. I think the closer the better it is, but obviously from a health and safety perspective, that should not be
58
allowed.
feet on it is not much.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a lot, but in terms of a jet flying over something, 58 feet isn't a big distance. And
And
all
like-
it takes is a mistake.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, they were very close to the scoreboard as
Yeah,
well.
58 feet. If they hit into that, and then what happens with the explosion of them hitting into that? People will probably die.
100%.
Yeah.
squadron's instruction permitted. Couple of things to also
Crazy.
note. It was
But
the lead
look how
pilot's
dope that
final
looks.
flight before
That looks
retirement,
sick.
which has historically been a recipe for high risk and potential disaster in military aviation. During the subsequent
So
Air
before they
Force
retire,
investigation, the lead pilot, who had
last
both
flight.
a distinguished career and a history of disciplinary problems, which included showing up late, missing a flight briefing, and failing to notify a superior about an absence, claimed that he had descended to avoid civilian air traffic and then lost track of his altitude because he was
He's
busy with
gassing.
other tasks,
He's
which
gassing.
wasn't a great excuse because monitoring his altitude while flying over 70,000 fans was his primary task at that point. The other three pilots in the formation told investigators they had no idea they were so low until they passed over Kinnick Stadium, and all of them were upset that the flight lead had put them in that position. As a result of the investigation's finding that the lead pilot was guilty of, quote, gross errors in judgment, end
Yeah.
quote, the wing commander demoted the pilot to major and recommended a court-martial. The pilot ultimately reached a legal settlement with the Air Force and accepted a fine and retirement at the lesser rank rather than going through a court-martial. Three other pilots in the formation, as well as the two stationed on the field as controllers, were reprimanded but allowed to remain in a flight status.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not their fault because their instructions is to follow the lead pilot.
Yeah.
The lead pilot is responsible. It's like a manager.
Yeah.
You trust your manager enough that if they ask you to do something, you're just going to do it
Yeah.
respectfully and as long as it's within reason. So they
Yeah.
trust this person. And he's super experienced. It's his last flight. They're not going to think he's that low. But then obviously as you fly over, you realize you get it.
Yeah.
It's not their fault, man.
And then you can't come out of formation
And it's too
either.
late as well. It's
Yeah.
already done. Do you know what I mean? You're traveling at quite a high speed.
November 14th, 2021. The NFL's Tennessee
interesting.
Titans were hosting the New Orleans Saints at Nissan Field in Nashville, Tennessee. 4 helicopters, 2 AH-64 Apaches, a CH-47
They look sick.
Chinook, and a UH-60 Blackhawk from the aviation
Blackhawk.
unit attached to the 101st Airborne Division based at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, flew southbound and then turned towards the west once they passed over the stadium, which took them in the direction of downtown Nashville. The formation flew across the field below the level of the upper deck. However, the rules for rotary wing aircraft are more permissive than those for fixed wing aircraft. The FAA's instruction reads, quote, helicopter operations may be conducted below the minimum altitude set for fixed wing aircraft because they have unique operating characteristics, the most important of which is their ability to execute pinpoint emergency landings during power out emergencies, end quote. In response to the publicity that was generated by the flyby, the Army seemed to slow roll the issue, responding at the time that command officials had directed a preliminary investigation to the event. It's unclear if any action was ultimately
not
taken
gonna lie,
against
I'd
the
rather see
aircrews
a jet than
involved
a
in the flyby.
Yeah, helicopters are cool, but I would want a jet.
No, jet is something else.
Yeah.
They're nice, but there's something about
But you know what? It's the Black Hawk. That's like such a... It's like a... What's the word? Because the movie, innit? It's like such a... What's the word? Like special... I'll think of the words. Guys, when you're doing a live reaction, sometimes your brain freezes. It is
My
what it
brain's
is.
definitely frozen.
But there's a word to just say like...
like a
Trademark.
staple?
It's like a trademark. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a trademark helicopter. Like, that's the kind of vibe I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So the next time you're at a sporting event that has a flyby, think about everything that went into it, and remember these 4 examples of those that were thrilling, yes, but also potentially dangerous.
So, the helicopters were dangerous too. Hey, what was your thoughts of the dangerous flybys?
It's risky. Like I said, from an audience perspective, they are loving it. But from a health and safety perspective,
That fan said he'll happily pay the tax again,
yeah,
just to see it again.
take my money.
Right, guys, thanks so much for the recommendation. Keep commenting below any other recommendations like this. We are reading the comments for suggestions. For now, Peace out.
Bye.